So I'll call this meeting to order at 6:33. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we'll move on to public comment. I haven't seen, there it is. Okay, public comment will be held to 3 minutes. I will have a timer running. At 2:40, I will say 20 seconds left. At the 3-minute mark, if you haven't stopped, I will mute your mic. Just to reiterate, the board will hear comments but won't engage in dialogue. If the allotted time isn't enough for your statement, you can email Julie or myself. Thank you for your attendance and cooperation. Let's see, first up we'll do the speakers that are in attendance first, and then I'll check to see if anybody online has a comment. So first up is Ty Schwarnier from Highgate.
So Chris, I think I'm
Ty, right at the podium, there's
okay.
The mic, if you'll just add, just stand up.
So I got different comments than most in the room, I think. But first thing is a question for the board. What do these hybrid meetings achieve? All I'm seeing them achieve is the public not feeling like their voices are heard and being shunned to a small room. And the board giving more of what little control they have to the supervisory union staff. I want to thank Julie and Jen DeSorda for responding to my concerns at the last meeting at the very next day. So thank you for that. But these meetings are ridiculous. I don't know what you want to achieve. I understand that you tried to have the last in-person meeting and make people wear masks. They chose not to. There's no reason the school board shouldn't be meeting in person and offering a second location for people that choose not to. And if you want to continue this, my recommendations for changes are school board members should be required to have their screen on at all times and roll call for all votes so that the public knows who voted for what, not just a hand, because when you watch the meeting afterwards, it's hard to see who voted for what if it's not a 9-0 vote. And that's all I had for tonight. I got a lot more, and I'll see you at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you, Ty. Next up is Casey Myers from Swanton.
So I had a lot of questions I wanted to ask, but obviously since you guys won't answer them, this makes it a little frustrating because I just wanted to know if you guys took your staff into consideration when you make these decisions, as in the school staff. I wanted to know if you guys had been given local medical professional opinions, facts, and if those facts that you were presented with were part of your decision making. Obviously, since you guys aren't answering that, I don't really know how to go about this. I received this from a close contact, a staff member who works in the school, and basically it's a ton of emails stating how and why masks are unsafe for our children. There's so much information here, I don't even know where to begin. So I guess I'm just going to read this part. This is according to the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health. It references 45 separate studies. It dates as far back as 1992, but it includes an additional 10 studies. First, the significant shifts in blood gases are measured after 10 minutes of wearing a mask. 10 minutes of wear, and we are expecting hours of wear from students and staff. After 1 to 2 hours of wear, the cognitive function is impaired along with the psychomotor ability. increases in bacterial, viral, and fungi accumulations on and within the mask. It also is major increases of facial irritant due to the properties of the mask, increased humidity, lack of ventilation, and light. Mask wearers report an increase in acne and other bacterial infections, rashes, and discomfort to the physical rubbing of the mask. Those are just some physical. The psychological effects are concentrations of 5% CO2 are known to trigger panic reaction within 15 to 16 minutes. Feelings of deprivation of freedom, loss of autonomy, loss of self-determination, subconscious and conscious, constant distraction having a foreign object over the mouth, moving while speaking and rubbing on the lips and face. Increases in suppressed anger, increases in anxiety, increase in delayed and inappropriate responses, decrease in health-related self-care. This goes beyond mask and into healthcare around COVID stigma. I could go on. It's disappointing that I can't get any response from you guys because these are facts that you're being presented by a medical professional and you are disregarding them. You're not hearing it, you're not taking it into account, and you're just sitting there saying these mask mandates are required. And that is coming from, as we learned last week, the school board. I apologize to Julie because I feel like I singled you out last week and I apologized. This is coming from the school board. It's not from the AOE. It's not from the DOH. And I'm tired of standing up here and having the only comment be, my time is up. Are you hearing what we're saying?
No, they're not.
Are you hearing me as a concerned parent? I have talked to my lawyer today, and I'm muted.
Are you freaking kidding me?
Ding.
That was terrible. What a bunch of cowards.
That's how this is gonna go.
Okay, next up
You can see how this is gonna go.
is Tammy Underwood.
Really? Is there any point?
Very well spoken, Casey.
All right, first of all, I agree with the first speaker. The way these meetings are being run is ridiculous, and there's no reason why we can't do these in person. But apparently, you're afraid of something. I don't think we're that scary, but apparently we are. I'm not gonna have enough time to go through what I want either, because you've just made it that way, so I'm just gonna hit some of the highlights. These new test to stay policies and kits that are coming out are ridiculous. And I know you'll participate because you've gone right along with everything else, so you're just gonna continue over the cliff just like you're being led. Those are ridiculous tests. They're even less reliable than the PCR test that the inventor of the test said that they weren't even meant to be used for. You get nothing but false positives. You're gonna have a nurse, if you're lucky, performing these tests, and then when she gets overwhelmed, lay people are gonna be taught to stick sticks up kids' noses, and I'm sorry, but I think that's ridiculous and it's very dangerous, and who wants to set themselves up for that kind of liability? Masks don't work. They're full of graphene oxide, especially the surgical masks, and if you think that kids, neighbors, friends, and community members don't talk, you're more than living under a rock. Many MVU staff and other staff members in the other schools have even vented their frustrations regarding mask policy, attendance, and the lack of response from the administration when asked for assistance in other areas. Many of the requests for additional training and increases where it's appropriate for additional duties have all been scoffed at. People have basically been told, no, there's no money for that. Just do it or we'll have to get someone else who can. Really? Denials for appropriate training especially infuriates me when there is more than enough blood money in that COVID grant funding to address such requests. I say again, what are you doing with the money if it's not going to legitimate requests such as this? And I'm not even going to be able to get into the vaccines because you're going to cut me off and I don't have enough time. But if anybody's got kids in the room, you might want to have them leave now because I am going to tell you one thing. Those pop-up clinics are evil. And I don't want to see any more at the school. Because if you're not going to do your homework about what's behind some of these vaccines, I'll give you a clue. These are tested with aborted fetal cells. And I think that is so abhorrent. And you're going to let that on the school grounds that we pay for? I don't think so. And I am not going to stop when it comes to this. I'll tell you that right now. So you better get ready. To ensure optimal organ viability, the child should be child should be dissected and the organs removed within 5 minutes of delivery. Anesthesia also cannot be used as it will alter the cellular activity. That means that these fetuses feel pain when this happens, and they're using this for the vaccines, and you're promoting that on pop-up clinics. Shame on all of you. How do you sleep at night? I'll be back at the next meeting. And oh, by the way, I am going to start making a paper trail, and I will send all of this to you because I am so far from done.
Unfortunately, time is up.
Yeah, oh yeah, I know.
Next up is Caleb Underwood.
I'll be giving my time up.
Go up
To
here.
me?
Go here. Go
Yeah,
up,
okay,
go
I'm
up,
going to take Caleb's
Go up,
minutes.
honey. Let him have it.
No, excuse me, you've already gone.
I'm giving my time up.
Caleb's giving me his
Son's
minutes.
Giving my time to my
Caleb's
wife.
welcome to talk, but you've already had your minute.
Come on up, you can talk with
Go
me.
up, Caleb. Yeah.
Another thing with these test to stay kits. The Agency of Education officials say that they're going to give specific
Excuse me. I've already said you've had your time.
I'm giving my time
No,
to
he's
her.
already done that, so she can speak. Let her speak. Enough already.
Are you afraid of what I have to say?
Enough.
No, I'm not afraid of what you have to say, but I said 3 minutes per person.
Well, he's giving me his minutes. What does it really matter?
All right, go ahead. You have 2 minutes, 50 minutes.
Let her speak.
2 minutes, 50 seconds left.
Almost all of the superintendents that were talked to about these kits, when the FDA was discussing the use of the Pfizer vaccines in ages 5 to 11, really? They're supporting vaccines? Excuse me? The fact that this is being supported for children is absolutely abhorrent. And as far as having untrained staff do these tests, I think you guys are really opening yourselves up to some liability here. So I hope you think long and hard if you're going to try to train people beyond the nurse to do these tests, especially since they're not going to work anyway and they're all false positives. I've picked Caleb up from the one class that he is taking at the school, and I've sat there waiting for him, and I've watched some of the windows in the pods waiting to have him come out and get in the car. And I've seen masks on kids going by the windows, here, not on at all. It's not being enforced. So what is the point? And the fact that they're doing that tells you what? They can't breathe. Take the darn masks off the kids. And I find it really funny that shortly after one of the last board meetings where I said something about the masks not being able to get to them at lunchtime, all of a sudden now the kids have to eat in their classroom. Was that really taken out on the kids because a parent said something? I hope you're not quite that petty. You've got me so mad now, I'm just going to stop because I won't probably only got a few seconds left anyway, but I will be back to the next meeting and I will have some more questions for you. And if you're not going to answer questions at the meetings, you better get ready for a flood of emails from all of these parents here because we're not here just to listen to ourselves talk.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Kendra King from Franklin.
Hello. I'm just curious, like, when enough is going to be enough with the masks. We can look at our community itself. There's been numerous cases already this year, a large amount of who've been vaccinated. The masks aren't keeping kids or teachers in school. I thankfully haven't had to deal with this in Franklin, but I know the time's coming. I've not heard of one child who's been severely sick. All the ones that I'm hearing about have minimal to no symptoms at all. At this point, masks are doing more harm for our children than what COVID would do to them if they ended up with it. My daughter comes home every day talking about teachers who she used to love and respect, who she now has no respect for because all they do is harp on her about the way she wears her mask. Staff members are threatening the children if they don't wear the masks right, then they're going to call their parents, trying to scare the kids. Like, this isn't right. Every morning, my daughter dreads going to school. She tells me in the car, I really don't want to go to school. And then I ask her what, and she's like, well, it wouldn't be so bad if I didn't have to wear a mask. And today, walking my boys into school, I told my youngest to put his mask on, and his response was, "But I really don't want to, Mommy." Well, I had to make him. I'm also curious if anyone's ever played an instrument. If you have, remember back to those first days of learning when you could hardly catch your breath as you were trying to play through a song? Well, I'm not sure if you're all aware or not, but kids have to play and learn these with a mask on with the hole cut in it. And not only that, but they have a filter at the end of the instrument. I'm not a parent who lets her children give up on things easily, but I can absolutely tell you that I was not about to force this on my daughter. So last year, since she was remote and didn't have to do this, that was the last year she'll play an instrument, unfortunately. Kids struggle enough to be able to breathe with the masks on. I wasn't about to force this torture on my daughter for a virus that's hardly even affecting these poor kids. As parents, we want you to look at our community, what it's doing to our community and our children. It's easy for you to say, oh, we're following the CDC and DOH guideline. But you know what? The CDC, DOH, Department of Ed, all of them aren't in our community, nor is the news that scares people into thinking and believing what they want you to. If you look at our actual school community, the nurses who are dealing with this firsthand, ask our children how they're feeling. I bet you would feel a lot differently. And I honestly feel like you're scared to do that, though. Scared to go back on a decision that you made. Everyone makes decisions. Sometimes they're the right ones and sometimes they're the wrong ones. We live and we learn, right? Even as adults. I think it's been made very clear that the ways that schools were opened aren't the way that they should be. I also think that it's been made very clear that whether you're vaccinated or not vaccinated doesn't make a difference. So pushing a vaccine we can have to lift a mask mandate isn't going to change. We all need to learn to live with COVID. It's not going away, and we all know that. Like, let our kids live a normal freaking life.
Thank you. Next up is Kim Delome of Highgate.
On October 5th, I attended the board meeting via Zoom because I was tired. I was tired from working all day, picking up my kids from school, running them home to get ready for soccer, coaching soccer, getting them fed in a bath, all while trying to be in attendance. I went into this meeting not wanting to be angry or irritated. I wanted to listen for our community. I wanted to just sit and listen for our community. I felt like I had said everything I wanted to in the August meeting that I had attended. Last week's meeting was nearly done, and a few comments were thrown back and forth that got both sides heated. I got triggered with one comment from a member of the board. The comment was that she was sick and tired of talking about masks, and she wants to go back to normal board business. My question is, do you think that we aren't sick and tired of talking about masks 24/7 too? Our lives literally are surrounded by complaints and frustrations with masks. Should we tell our kids the same thing you told us? Mackenzie and Maxwell, I am sick and tired of hearing you both complain about the masks. Just wear them and quit complaining. Doesn't that sound harsh? On October 11th, we received an email letting us know our son Max had close contact with a positive case on October 17th. I was irritated. How close was the contact? And we've been out and about all weekend long, so now what? We hemmed and we hawed on whether we should get him tested. He showed 0 symptoms, which I know can mean nothing, but a mom's intuition, I knew he didn't have it. We decided to go ahead and test him at urgent care. Max was very scared to get the test done. So my mom brain thinks, hey, if I take the test first, it'll ease his mind. So I did just that. I went first, then Max, and off we went. A few hours later, I received a call that I had tested positive. I told them I work from home. There is no other close contacts other than my family. I was told they were 99.9% sure I did not catch this in a grocery store, but most likely from my son Max, since he did have the close contact with the positive case. Max's results had not processed with mine. When they finally came through, he was negative. I took 3 at-home rapid tests, which all showed negative. I had another PCR test at Kinney's on Friday, October 15th. The results came back on the 17th as negative. The DOH had called me multiple times. I didn't answer until I had my second PCR test results to be sure I had the most accurate information. The DOH contacting tracing member told me, I have already closed your case. If it reopens, it could really open a can of worms. She told me, just take the negative results, and if anyone from the DOH calls again, you can tell them you've already done your 10-day quarantine. Blown away, I said, oh, okay, thanks. I can't tell you how many familiar faces I saw at the urgent care getting those same PCR tests. I had parents trust those results of the PCRs because PCRs are the gold standard of tests. But how many of those were false positives like mine? I know the state released some updated guidance today about the contact tracing and quarantine guidelines, and I was able to quickly skim over them. We've been in school for 8 weeks wearing masks to keep everyone in school and healthy. Meanwhile, we have spent more classes than I can count on 2 hands at home because of the close contact. We are all in the same boat. We all want the same things. We want our kids to be in school and healthy. We just see it from a different point of view. No one from the CDC, DOH, AOE knows the right answer.
Time is up.
And mic drop it there.
Unfreaking believable.
Next up is Christian Valente from Franklin.
Talk fast.
So here we are again, armed with more information about our children's rights that you guys clearly don't care about. I just want to let you know that you guys have no right to mask, test, or coerce our children into getting this stupid vaccine. Medical testing, vaccinations are things I go to my pediatrician for, not my school board or my school. Unless you guys are going to start paying me child support for my kids, I don't think you should have any say in anything that happens with them that doesn't involve you. This is included. Healthy people should not be subject to testing. It goes against their free will. And if you didn't notice, our country is the only country that requires so many vaccines for children, and that we have medications that expire because we're run by big pharmacies, and that, it's all about money. I also wanted to let you know that according to the Children's Health Defense, that this serves as a notice that the mandate for any individual to wear a mask against COVID-19 for employment or attendance at a university or other institution violates federal law. This federal law is Title 21 USC 360 BBB 3E1A 21111 of the Federal Food and Drug Cosmetic Act. And what it says is that it is against the law for you to make our kids wear masks, make our kids do tests, and make our kids get vaccinated. So I want to know what we're going to do about that. Because it's from a legal law firm that, like I said, it's the Children's Health Defense. And they're saying that it is against the law, that you have no right. And especially since some of the vaccines are considered emergency use only, and they will not even be released to be approved totally until 2022 and 2023. Yeah, well, they're not allowed to do that. I don't know. I can't find this stupid paper. But anyways, so Pfizer is, clinical trials don't end until May 2nd of 2023, and Moderna's not until October 27th of 2022. So in the meantime, you're violating the law by masking and testing my children and making them follow your rules. So I want to know what are you going to do about it? Oh, I forgot. You don't answer questions. That's right.
You can let them know we've consulted with an attorney.
Oh yeah, I can say that.
Okay, that is all I have on.
So we also wanted to let you know that we have consulted with an attorney, so just be ready for that.
Okay. We have concluded everyone had signed up on the sign up sheet. Is there anyone online that would like to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on our agenda. Next up is agenda review. I have no adjustments. Julie?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. Then we'll move on to approval of meeting minutes for October 5th. I'd entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
This is Terry. I'll make that motion.
Terry is a first. Joanne's a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting October 5th meeting minutes, raise your hand. Against, abstentions. Motion carries, let's see, 7-0-2. Okay, next up, we have presentation, and underneath our presentations, we have our Act 173 special ed presentation.
So Tanya, I will share your presentation for you. Is that what you would like, or are you set to do that?
No, it would be great if you could put the PowerPoint up.
I will do my best.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna have to finagle.
While you're setting that up, Robert, I noticed central office has a hand raise. Is there a reason?
No, we had a request here.
We were just wondering if there was a meeting agenda available for the public who attend the meeting.
Chris, I can pop into Laura's office if I think she's still on.
I can print them.
Thank you, Laura.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. I meant to do that before, and I apologize.
No worries, thank you.
There's
Tanya,
also an
I can't,
iPhone.
my computer won't let me do it for some reason.
I can try
can't-
to share. I can try to share mine if you want. I've got those slides. Let me see.
I also have a hand raised on an iPhone tab.
Harry, are you sure you want to do that? I can do it too. I'm in my office. I have a couple screens going.
Oh, okay. That's
Awesome.
thank you.
Terry, you need to unshare.
Sorry. Hope you didn't see anything untoward.
Before we move on, I actually got an iPhone with a hand raised. I'd like to see what that's about.
Yeah, thank you so much. Here.
Can you see that, Tanya?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't think my internet can support two things at once.
That is okay. My apologies. And I know Chris wants to.
We'd have to get on the first slide though. There we go. Thank you.
Chris, are you ready, or is the iPhone not responding?
I believe we can move on. Nobody's responding, so.
Okay.
All right, thanks everyone for the opportunity to just share about Act 173. So it seems like a long time ago that the act was passed, but time flies. And so Act 173 is actually
Oh,
passed
Tanya, you just froze.
in 2018 FY21. Can you hear me?
No, you're freezing.
Are you able to hear me?
I can see you now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna just try to go on through my phone because it might be a better connection. So I'll keep talking and trying to get on here as well. So the act was passed in 2018. The implementation date originally was 21. Now it's been pushed out. So that next year is the first year of the actual implementation of this act. And it is a law that is intended to enhance the effectiveness, availability, and equity of services provided to all students who require additional supports in Vermont schools. So the big purpose is around those services and supports for all students. Very often, especially early on, and maybe not so much anymore, people refer to it as the special ed finance law, because one of the major pieces that's changing within this law is the way that special education in Vermont is financed, the structure for the finance. So it's gotten most well known, probably initially, at least for the financial piece of it, but really it is a great big a whole host of other types of things that I'll talk more about that really have to do with programs and education and best practices. So that's really the underlying meat of the act. Okay, next slide, Julie. Okay, so there was some research that went into the passing of this law, and the two major studies that were done were a UVM study that looked at special ed funding, and with the purpose of trying to identify a model that would incentivize desirable practices for student supports and also stimulate the innovation for delivery of services and decrease spending in special education. So that was that was a study with those intents. The other study that was done was the DMG, the District Management Group report. And that study looked at 10 different districts across the state and looked at practices in special education. And so out of that study came 5 recommendations. And I think we've probably talked about the DMG here and there over the last few years, but 5 recommendations that came out of that report. And so the UVM study combined with the DMG sort of fed into what ended up informing Act 173. Okay, next slide. Thank you. So the UVM study conclusions really focused, really identified that in Vermont, under the reimbursement funding model that's been in place, it was administratively very costly. It was not aligned with the current priorities, such as a multi-tiered system of support and positive behavior interventions. It was incentivizing more spending by increasing the money that went along with identification for students, and it was discouraging cost containment. And then because of that, it was lacking some transparency. So there were greater incentives to identify students for disabilities because that's how the funding stream was working. The solutions that were offered through the UVM study were this idea of a census-based model for funding versus a reimbursement model. So the census-based model would allow, in theory, for more flexible use of funds without needing necessarily labels for students or qualification for students, but a more flexible way to say we can use this money to meet the needs of students how we see fit. It would allow for funds to be used for early intervention. So prior to students being identified for special education, funds could be used to support them. The census model seems to be probably a more simple and predictable way of accessing funds, and it aligns more with the other policies and priorities that we are working toward as a state. Next slide, thank you. The DMG report, the 5 key takeaways from that report, and I think we have talked about them at various points in the past, but the 5 big things that came out of that report in looking at how special education is delivered across the state. The one thing is that we are more the big things that came out of it were that schools need to work toward ensuring that core instruction meets the needs of most students. So that's talking about that tier 1 instruction. So that is a priority, is looking at tier 1. A second priority would be identifying how to get students who are struggling additional instructional time and not instead of time, right? So not supplanting, but supplementing instruction. The other takeaway was that we want to ensure that students who struggle receive instruction from highly skilled teachers, so that they're people with a good skill set matched to the students' needs. We want to look at a systems-wide approach to supporting behavior. And then the last goal would be to have students with more intensive needs served by people that also have that expert level of training. So more trained experts meeting the needs, again, matching the child's need and intensity of need with expertise. So those were the big sort of recommendations that came out of the DMG report. So the Act 173 itself is intended to support students with IEPs, students with 504 plans, students without IEPs or 504 plans, but who may be impacted by a disability or social emotional behavioral needs, English learners, and or students who are reading below grade level. So really looking at our system, and it's intended to support students who struggle with a myriad of things, not just children who are labeled and identified through special education. So the big changes that we will see, and this is the special ed funding piece that will be implemented next school year. The big change is that we will be shifting away from this idea of a reimbursement system. So this school year, we're still on a reimbursement system. We submit to the state what we spend, and this is one part of our funding through this model. We get a reimbursement amount back. Next year, that shifts to the census-based model, which is based on average daily membership rate. So the state has calculated for school districts for the interim period for the next few years, a rate based on our 3 years average spending per pupil. And so that is what is being used to identify what our rate will be. And that's our district rate, our own historic rate per at ADM. Eventually, we're all moving across the state to something called a uniform base amount. So it's based on the state spending, their average, and we will move toward that amount of money per student in our district. So far, the support and the sort of PD and the focus from the Agency of Ed has really been focused on those programmatic, sort of the substance of what the Act is meant to get at. So really a focus on MTSS, a focus on our educational support teams, the focus on our district-wide coordinated curriculum, focus and support on our local comprehensive assessment system, and then our needs-based professional development. So the agency is really sort of offering training and offering PD and offering sort of a focus on these more substantive pieces. We have yet to understand fully what the formula will be like for what our money will look like, how we're accountable to that, and that sort of thing. But really, and that's that piece that I said, it's known as a funding law, but really it's about that substance, and that's what we're focusing on. Okay. And so when we think about what that means for us, really, first of all, it's not something that's suddenly happening next year. It's stuff that we've been working on. So way back in the beginning, when the DMG kind of rolled out and when the UVM study was happening, we were on board with just starting to shift our systems, right? And that's when we talk about all of our MTSS work, our curriculum work. But what we've really identified is that we have, we need a high level of collaboration between the curriculum and instruction area. So that's Kosha's heads up that piece, and then the special education. So some co-leadership really in the effort to eliminate the silos. and more effectively serve all of our students. So really looking at no longer general ed curriculum and here's special education, but really working together to kind of blend those worlds through our MTSS. And we've been doing that work through looking at those DMG priorities as a district with our building administrators, increasing expertise, identifying and increasing our tier 1 core instruction. Again, adding that intervention time as a supplement, not a supplant, and looking at our behavior supports. We need to continue to articulate and refine our MTSS and our service delivery models across the district. And we're starting, we're just starting this year an MTSS audit, which will look at our systems of support across every building to really help us identify with an outside agency coming to look and interview and look at our systems to identify where are we strong and where can we build, and then where are some gaps that we need to improve upon. So we're working on that. We're working on our universal design for learning, and that idea is simply that the core instruction in our classrooms should be designed right out of the gate to meet the needs of a range of learners. So we're not targeting instruction right down the middle, but we're really opening up instruction for all students initially in that core instruction. We need to continue to look at our EST processes across our district and also look at how we're ensuring that we have systems and processes in place that allow for students to continue to receive intervention, receive supplemental instruction without needing a category or an identification through special education or another disability category. And then simultaneously, I would say we are looking at how this shift with Act 173 sort of overlaps and pairs with our recovery planning, and how really when we look at our recovery planning, we're basing much of what we're doing through the lens of this work, right? So we have recovery and we have this other work, and we're blending them together. So we're not doing multiple things. We're really funneling our energy. This work also is situated in a time when some other special ed rules are taking place, same time next year, July of 22. We have the 173 is going into effect, but also there are other special education rules that are changing that are happening simultaneously. So and those have mostly to do with how children are found eligible for special education. So those rules are changing pretty significantly and pretty differently than any of us most of us have seen. And so we're trying to understand how that fits in within our MTSS model, and how the MTSS model is going to support the shift in rule changes. Let me just see. Julie, I didn't know if I couldn't see the last bullet on there. I don't remember what there was, but that was it. So we have questions around 173 that, we'll see how it plays out. One simply earlier this year was around our service plan and what's that going to look like. And when we got through that already. So we did submit a service plan in October. It was a much more abbreviated version than we normally submit. So we have submitted that. We have questions around what does our accountability look like for Act 173 with the new model. We're unclear, and that has not been sort of shared with us yet from the agency around, will we still be doing time studies? What will the accountability be like for special education and the use of our funds? And how we go about documenting that. We don't know that yet. We continue to have questions about how flexible is flexible. So the law promises flexibility in spending. We don't actually know what that means yet. We have high hopes that, in an ideal world, we get the money and then we know how to fit it into our MTSS and identify how we're going to use that, but we're just not sure yet what the flexibility with that will be. We're continuing to participate in PD opportunities from the AOE. And as that rolls out, I think, most districts are also supplementing that with their own access to other resources so that we're in a good place. And then again, just being cognizant and thinking about how does this new act overlap with our new special ed rules and our recovery planning. Again, just with those big picture things in mind, trying to make things as efficient and seamless as possible. Next. I'm going to let Laura share this piece because I think she's had a look at this information a little bit more than I have.
Sure. So as Tanya said, this is a change in revenue and how we're reimbursed or how special ed costs are funded. We're moving from that reimbursement model that she spoke about earlier to more of a block census grant amount. We've been anxiously awaiting since kind of the beginning discussion around 173 about what that means for our school district. And I think that's true in every school district in the state, a little apprehensive about, would we have a significant decrease in funding prior to making all the, adjustments in our instruction or being able to recategorize costs. But it appears, and as we thought, we're hopeful for MVSD that given the estimates provided by the AOE recently, that we actually will probably remain fairly consistent, at least for fiscal year 23 when this law comes into effect. Actually, the estimates are just a little bit higher than what we've received in the past. So obviously that will not necessarily maintain, but at least it allows us another year to prepare and make adjustments for this shifting in revenue. I will just reiterate that these are estimates at this time. The AOE was very quick to remind us that they're estimates. They're still working through the weighting work that they have to do. And then as Tanya said, the AOE is working on forecasting the out years. So the next from fiscal year 24 to probably fiscal year 26, as they're going to transition from the census block grant allocations to that uniform base amount. So it will no longer be calculated on what we've spent, but more as what the state is spending as a whole. But at least for fiscal year 23, at this point, we're confident that we won't have a big cliff with our special ed revenues.
Okay, I think that's our last slide. I'm wondering if there are questions, clarifying points. Jen?
If we don't have enough, excuse me, if we don't end up having enough funds to cover the needs, what do we have, like another pool we can take it from, or what do we tell the state we need more money? How does that work? I'm just a little concerned to make sure that every child is going to get what they're going to need for services.
I think generally speaking, we're asked to allocate the 173 funds for special education. So we need to ensure that whatever money we get, though it is flexible and we can use it across our system, our legal obligation is to special education first or also. And so then anything beyond that, if it's not extraordinary costs, so extraordinary costs are above 60,000 and we get a higher, we still get some money back on that, but just our general special ed costs, if they were to go over what we're getting through the grant, that would be our local funds, I believe. And Laura, you can explain maybe a little bit better about where that comes from, but that's right.
Right.
There is an extra.
Exactly. We've already sort of started to make that transition or plan for that, Jen. If you remember during budget season, we talked a little bit about how we're utilizing our paras and what portion of those are actually truly providing special ed services and really trying to tidy that up. And not that we were overcharging before, but being overly cautious and maybe conservative in the things that we were charging to special ed to sort of position ourselves over a few years to get ready for this. We knew this was going to happen. And as Tanya said, it will hit the general fund account, but the services, if we're allowed enough time to transition, the services should be altered as well. And that's what we're working on. And so special ed services should still be happening the way that they need to. Students' needs should still be met. But we're thinking kind of with that gen ed special ed hat on at the same time as Tanya was speaking to. So I'm hoping that we won't have a funding cliff, and I don't want to speak for Tanya, but I don't believe at this time we think students will be going without special ed services that they are required or that need to have.
No, we'll continue to spend what is needed for students to get the services that they require through their plans. And the shift really becomes away from, oh, let's make this student who struggles a little bit eligible so we can pay somebody with certain funds that are in the end unpredictable. And so we'll know how much money we're going to be getting for budgeting purposes. That will be revenue into the district, and we'll build a budget that, as we do every year, estimates the needs of the children that we'll be serving. So what it really does is sort of eliminates the silos of here's the special ed money and the regular ed money. And obviously you target your special ed funds for those services that are the most unique and the most different from the general ed classroom. But at this point, our estimates and what we're hearing is that we should not be drastically affected one way or another. So I think we're pretty lucky in that regard.
Thank you. You just hear the word cliff and you kind of get a little nervous and right.
I think there are some districts that are going to experience that. We planned appropriately. I think Tanya's done a great job. Julie's done a great job. And I think we're in better shape than some school districts are.
Okay, any other questions or comments regarding Act 173? Terry.
I just wanted to say thank you. That was really well explained. Something really complicated for us to be able to understand it like that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And what it means to MVSD. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Tanya.
Right.
Apparently I missed during our discussion about October 5th meeting minutes. I missed Don's hands raised. He had an edit for our meeting minutes.
Robert, can you unmute Don?
Thank you. I did have a comment on the minutes, but I'm going to let it go. But I did vote for the minutes. But I did have a question. But I find the process frustrating because I know Robert has his hands full, and I guess our system says everybody has to be muted. But I'm learning little by little that I'll get the word out there. But at this point, let's move on.
Don, if you want to submit your comment to Purette for email, we can make any adjustments.
Okay, so we're done with presentations. We're gonna move on to administrative reports, and we have the elementary reports, and we'll start in Franklin with Joyce. There's Joyce.
Okay, now I can get started. I hate having somebody else be able to mute me. Okay, so what am I going to start with? I guess I'll start with, we celebrated 40 of our students who brought back their summer reading logs. So that was just a really nice reading recognition assembly. There was a couple of pictures there in the report, the kids picking out their different prizes. Like I said, they thought were awesome. It was really nice that with everything else our nurses are doing, Alita had set up a flu clinic, and that we had a good turnout for that from staff and from some community members that participated in the flu clinic. Our Indigenous Peoples Day, we had activities in each of the classrooms to recognize and celebrate that day. Really range from some classes talking about the history of the day and the purpose of the day to reading and listening to books from Joe Bruchac and Nancy Wilson had a great video of Joe Bruchak reading a story in English and his son Jesse translating it in Abenaki. Some of the kids learned some Abenaki words. And of course, the highlight was Celine from the PAC bringing over the new books to add to our collection of Native American titles for our younger and our older students. And I put in a couple of pictures of that in the report. Just such a really generous donation, and everybody was very excited about that. The fire department came. Last year they came and did the presentation on fire safety outside. And again, something from last year that we ended up wanting to keep. They did the presentation again outside this year. Unfortunately, due to the lack of water in Franklin, they weren't able to do some of the cool things they did last year with the water truck and stuff, but the kids always still learn a lot and enjoy the presentation. And when it's outside like that, they get to see all the equipment on the fire trucks and learn a lot more about what's involved with the equipment for the fire department too. And I have to say, this year, they not only let me do the siren, but the horn. And I was super excited. It was kind of fun that at the end of the day that day, as the kids were leaving school, one little first grader ran by me and he actually ran back and kind of tapped me and said, "I loved it when you did the siren." And I was like, yeah, me too. It is a lot of fun. They still won't let me drive though. September and October were really busy, as I put in my report, with all kinds of assessments. And we've been looking at all of those and analyzing those and looking at strengths and needs of not only classes, but definitely down to individual needs and next steps. I'm going to try to keep my report kind of short tonight, so it's not a long night for you guys. September and October were also really busy with an amazing just amount of professional development, but also just incredibly helpful professional development. Leah Marmelstein, our writing consultant that was with us in August, was with us 2 days in September. She was with us again yesterday. I just can't tell you what an incredible opportunity this is for teachers to be able to get such individualized professional development. They've been meeting with Leah one-on-one, and this time they met with her in grade bands. And as difficult as coverage was for that right now, it was so worthwhile, because as much as we talk in our K-2 PLC and 3-6, and we talk vertically, K-6 and pre-K-6 at meetings, still having that time to talk together on a specific topic like that with Leah, there were several aha moments of, from second grade to third grade, different things that were happening. And it was just so valuable. She's been working with us on planning units of writing, looking at target goals, small group conferencing, modeling lessons. It's just really been what teachers feel they need instructionally and what kids need in terms of what their specific needs are for writing. It's just been, I think they would all tell you, just been the most wonderful professional development. And while we were doing that, we've also had Christian Quartermain. He's only been 1 day with us, but he's been working, he's a math consultant and working with us on helping teachers do something called Math Menu, which allows the teachers to really differentiate groups based on student needs. And so that's been really exciting. And in addition to all that, we had a couple of our teachers go to an all-day science workshop that they thought was really, really helpful, and looking at planning units just from the start to the finish. Sometimes you go to a workshop like that and it concentrates on one aspect. And this really was planning the entire science unit from start to finish. And they just found it really, really helpful. And then we had Felicia Coda is being employed by MVSD 2 days a week as an art therapist, and she's working in Swanton and MVU. But she came and actually did a presentation in Franklin for our whole staff, introducing them to art therapy, and just some little tricks that, in terms of art that, anybody could use to help students. So that was another really good professional development afternoon that we had after school. Carolyn and Jen are thrilled to have kids back in the cafeteria.
You know, just another thing that has been more back to normal this year that we're really thankful for. And having the salad bar again. And they talked about how much all the fruits and all the vegetables from the garden, they have used every single piece of produce. So that has just been, you know, the kids have gone down and harvested. And I don't know, I hope you had a chance to look at my report, because I just love the pictures from the harvesting, because I swear some of the vegetables were so huge. I felt like that one little girl there, the beets are practically as big as she is. Then we are also very honored to receive another donation this year it was from George Raynak's family. They gave the school a donation, and they said we could use it for anything we wanted to. And what we want to use it for is to buy some of the materials that we might use, or equipment or whatever that we might use for the hour of code. And we had decided last year that from now on, we would be calling the hour of code in our school the George Raynak hour of code. So we're really hoping that to be able to use that money for things that George would think would be cool for kids to be learning with. Facilities update really quickly. The new boilers, we were hoping to have them go online tomorrow, but there's, with everything else, delays with getting some of the crucial parts. So it's delayed, but just until next Tuesday. And so we hope to have those online next Tuesday. And then there were a few other things I put for facilities update in my report. I won't go into all of those, but those are there for you to read. And then upcoming events next week: Red Ribbon Week, the National Anti-Drug and Alcohol Week. That's always a really fun week for staff and kids to participate in, with a theme day every day. And of course, parent conferences. We're looking forward to having our parents in on November 4th and 5th. And that is it from Franklin. Thank you. Now you can mute me back up.
Thank you, Joyce. Any questions for Franklin? Seeing none, we'll move on to Highgate and Yeshua.
Perfect. Thank you. And hello, everybody. You might hear my youngest is at the table here hanging out with me doing some drawing. But, you know, we love kids, right? That's why we all do what we do. So yeah, things have been going pretty well at Highgate. I want to start off with, I very luckily got to go into classroom today, and I got to stick around for kind of a kindness celebration in their room. And the teacher has a kindness box, and the teachers and staff add little notes of things they noticed that other friends have done. And one student read all of them out, and there had to have been like 17 or 18 different little kindness notes. I even got one myself, which was really cool while I was there. So it was just nice to see the kids were very engaged, were excited when they got a note. And it was just nice to see they were just sitting there quietly the entire time, just in anticipation of getting a note. And I think every single kid got one, and about 8 of them were from kids themselves, which I thought was pretty cool because they're second graders. So that was really fun. If a lot of you know, Miss Ernie Hemingway has not quite left Highgate. She's been with us as a tutor after she retired, but her performance days are far from over. And she just had a wonderful performance for the after school program. And she'll also be doing one for our 3rd through 6th grade parents. And I was able to get a great video of her in all of her glory and trying to model how to be a great actor. And it was just wonderful to see. And I haven't put on our Facebook yet, but at least wanted to share that will be coming soon because she did a wonderful job. We also are excited to prepare for parent-teacher conferences. We have our Pick a Time website, or our link out there for families. And we already have families signing up for the 4th and 5th. And we certainly look forward to having our families in again, because as you all know, we did have open house in person, and that was wonderful. So we're glad to have families back in the building again. We also were very excited for Leah Marmelstein, as Ms. Hakey already had spoken about. She was in today, and I just can't tell you how invaluable it is. Like Joyce already mentioned, it's catered to what we need. And after every day we have a training, she sits with the literacy coach and myself and says, all right, what do you think for next time? So we take teacher feedback, and we decide what she'll be doing the following time. And it's just an amazing time to be able to see a professional, a very, highly popularized professional, modeling writing instruction and walking away with that for our teachers. So what I think has been amazing with MVSD since I've been a part of it is it's really this catered professional development. So it's not this one model fits all. It's these professionals who are saying, what are you looking for? What can I provide for our individual schools? So I think that's just an amazing resource. I know the teachers today loved the opportunity. We also did have our data day for the district a week or so ago to look at various data points and how to help inform our instruction and also make school goals. So that was wonderful to do in grade level teams. We also, as a school, we really wanted to have a very specific plan for our students who are having extended absences or for classroom closures. So that was one part of a couple of our faculty meetings was our leadership team, which we call KIT, Continuous Improvement Team, made a very specific suggestion to teachers of what that can look like. So how we're responding to 0 to 3 days, 4 to 7 and beyond 7. So we kind of have a plan of how teachers are going to help support our students. We also currently are going to be looking for a virtual tutor. So that way we really want something to offer for our families who just need something that maybe the school day is just not the right time. And we're hoping to find a virtual tutor after school hours to work with those families that might need something a little different than what we can provide during the school day. So as I said, things have been wonderful. Things are going well at Highgate, and we look forward to continuing what has been happening. Thank you all.
Thank you, Yeshua. Any questions for Highgate? Joanne?
So it's not really a question, it's just a comment. And I don't want to take away from all the positive and all the excitement. And this is, I'm going to say this is a positive thing. So Yasha, I just want to say thank you for putting, in your newsletter, talking about the loss of learning plan. I definitely, not that I didn't realize, but it was a good eye opener for me when you put in, the possibility of students being out 7 to 17 days. That's real. That's real time. And I know that it's out there, whether it's parent related because parent has COVID. So then, child stays home, whether it's a classroom issue. So, one of the, students need to stay home, whether it's staffing issues. So we need to keep our students home. So I just want to say thank you for putting that in there, and any additional information that you have, I would be interested in it as far as, the loss of learning plan and the continuous improvement team.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what we realized through our work is that it's very situational. So although I do say we have a plan, it's that teams of teachers have a plan of how it will happen, because we've had a lot of very unique situations at Highgate that has made us so we've had classes that have had kids there, kids that aren't there. So I would be happy to share more. I can't say that it's a formalized plan, but we've asked teachers to at least plan so many days of remote instruction catered to what kids actually do in the classroom. So for example, our K1 kids are not going to be probably getting onto a morning meeting or using a lot of technology. So theirs is a little bit different than our older kids who could actually use a Google Classroom. But we just felt like our teachers really felt like they needed something more, because we have a closure, we have to go, be out for a few days. They just need to be a little more prepared than just, what are you going to do about it, so to speak. And definitely the 7 days to 17 days is very situational by families who are experiencing it. And that is a lot of time that these kids are out. And although we aren't required to provide anything, we, as all of us, I think as educators, we have to do something to keep them up, because that is an incredible amount of time.
Thank you. Terry.
Thank you. I have a question. Is that going on? Is something like that going to be happening in every school? Have you all discussed that? Or are you discussing it now, trying to figure out how to do that for every school? Something similar?
Ours was modeled after some of the stuff we did have last year that was fairly district-wide. We just made a few modifications, but of course, Joyce and Chris can speak to that.
I asked because I'd love to see it. You know, like you said, that's a lot of time out, and we've heard a lot of people saying their kids are out a lot. So it would be nice if there was a backup. Chris is shaking his head, so I think this is going to be good.
Am I unmuted?
Yeah, go ahead, Joyce.
Yeah, so last year, Terry, when we did have people out, one of the things I felt like we really were really conscientious about, and even when people had to meet on a Sunday, if teachers had to get together, that kids really, we tried really hard to not have them miss instruction. And even if it had to be, you know, remote, that's what we did. And, you know, we just tried to really just keep going, whether they were in school or not. I kind of didn't want to say anything because I'm afraid I'm knocking on wood, because so far this year, we haven't had a classroom have to go remote this year yet. I'm just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, but we will have what I think we'll do something similar to what we did last year, because we did feel like we pretty quickly got things together for students when they were out. But so far this year, it's been good so far this year. And again, I hope I didn't just jinx us, but we are, you know, prepared to do similar to what we did last year if we need to.
Okay, any other questions for Highgate? And then I think Chris can respond when Swanton goes. So no more questions for Highgate. We will move on to Swanton and Chris and Justina.
Thanks, Chris. So Terry, I'll take just a quick second to respond to your question. We also have a remote learning template full of opportunities that we push out to students when they need to be away from school. That template provides a variety of academic and social emotional opportunities for students. And one of the things that was really important to us was, in addition to maintaining some of those academic pieces, to maintain the connection to school. That's really been our struggle over the past couple of years with COVID, is maintaining the connection. So part of that for us has been asking teachers to conduct a live meeting with students when they have to be out of the building. So that's one way that we've addressed that. I'll just take a second or two to highlight a few things that were in my report. I want to echo what Joyce and Yeshua said about the focus on instruction. I feel really fortunate to be in a district that's placing a tremendous amount of time and effort and value on not only the core instruction for students, making sure that we have high quality first instruction, but also closing the achievement gap. And both of those things were the focus of our in-service on October 14th. So Yeshua kind of mentioned the structure of that. At Swanton, we started out with our teaching teams meeting in grade levels and looking at a variety of different data points, then moving into vertical teams. Part of the value of vertical teams really is for second grade teachers, for example, to sit with sixth grade teachers and talk about what are the trends that we see in our pre-K to 6 continuum, and where can we start to support students as early as possible. So that was an incredibly valuable afternoon for us. And we came out of that with not only grade level goals and vertical team goals, but school goals as well. So all of that is focused on high quality first instruction and closing the achievement gap. So that was a really productive day. Part of what I also am really excited about is how that aligns with supervision and evaluation that we'll be doing of teachers this year. So teachers at Swanton will be focusing on standards-based planning, standards-based instruction, and conditions for learning. And those were also really the three areas, the three lenses that we used during in-service. So there are some really purposeful, really logical connections between the goals that teachers are identifying, the data that they're using, supervision and evaluation, and professional development. So it's really nice to have those things very interconnected and teachers and staff can draw connections between all of those different pieces. I also want to mention that our para-educators were also part of in-service on that afternoon, and they worked with our school-based behavior consultant and our school psychologist to start to unpack some really complex student behaviors. And they really appreciated that opportunity for professional development as well. And it's been great to be able to walk around the building and see them implementing some of the strategies that they talked about. I wanted to just mention that I know it's a board goal to really focus on community engagement this year and thinking about how we bring the communities back into our school lives. And we've done a lot of that in the past month. We, as Joyce mentioned, it was Fire Safety Month, and we worked with our Swanton Fire Department. They purchased books for our classroom, and they purchased smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms for us to give away to kids. On our daily announcements in the morning, we've been tossing out some fire safety facts. So we've really appreciated our partnership with the local fire department. We had a great Indigenous Peoples Day as well. We had presentations of books for both our Babcock and Central libraries, as well as new flags. And we were grateful for having that acknowledged in our article in the St. Albans Messenger. So we really appreciated the PAC and the tribe's generosity and coming to school and making both of those presentations. We also have a collaboration going on this week. This week is National School Bus Safety Week. And we had a very generous donation from Terracell that allowed us to purchase some bus safety education materials. And I took sorry, I think I got muted there for a second. So with Bus Safety Week, I took advantage of this week to get into all of our kindergarten through second grade classrooms and teach a half-hour lesson on bus safety. That was a big undertaking to do all 13 of those classes for a half an hour this week, but a really, really great opportunity for me to get to know our younger kids. So that's been a lot of fun. The last thing I want to mention, or a couple last things, is October is also National Mentoring Month, and National Mentoring Day is coming up on October 27th. We'll be celebrating the work of our mentors in our building that are spending time and supporting our new teachers, which is one of the really important ways that our school district supports our new employees. So that's something we're going to be thinking about this month. I also want to mention Swanton is using positive behavior interventions and supports, which is a proactive model for supporting and recognizing student behavior and establishing expectations. And we're taking on a really exciting project to help support the training of everyone with PBIS. We know that staffing is difficult these days. It can be a challenge to send folks away to workshops. Even if workshops are virtual, it's challenging to get people out of their classrooms. So we're working on designing our own Swanton micro-credential in PBIS. A micro-credential is really just a set of kind of independent study activities that teachers will participate in. It's self-paced, they do it on their own time. And that's a strategy that we're using to kind of get everyone on the same playing field for PBIS. So that's thinking out of the box with our professional development, and our universal PBIS team is really excited about that. So those are my highlights, and I'm happy to answer any questions about what I wrote in my report.
Don.
Chris, on the mentoring program, how many new teachers do you have this year who are receiving mentoring?
Don, I'm not sure the exact number right off the top of my head. I think it's around 10 or 11, somewhere.
So is the mentoring an internal process, or do you bring people in from the outside to mentor?
So all of our mentors are currently teachers that are on staff.
Is this similar to what you did at the Fletcher School or your other assignments, or is our process different?
It's similar. Yep, we also connected experienced teachers with new teachers. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Chris and Swanton? Seeing none, thank you very much, Chris. And that concludes our elementary administration reports. So we can move on to new business. First up under new business is budget development timeline.
Okay, so as I'm sure most of you are aware, budget development season is upon us. And I thought this year, since it is a quite involved process that lasts 4 to 5 months and consumes a lot of our time and energy, it might be nice to have a timeline to refer to and to kind of guide us through that process. So in the drive, I shared with you a budget development timeline that starts on October 15th and takes us with on October 15th with us completing the service plan, as Tanya spoke to earlier, and takes us basically all the way through development at board meetings, review, AOE information coming in as far as equalized pupil information, anticipated revenues, and then through the marketing pieces of our budget where the board comes in and creates videos and such with Julie and other administrators, and then all the way down to printing in the paper and marketing there and having a budget vote on town meeting day. It's about 3.5 pages long. So please feel free to reference that. I just think it's nice to have it in writing. For me, I know I do it every year, but I kind of work backwards from town meeting day back to the beginning of the creation, but we are working on that first draft of the budget here. We've been doing that for about a month now. That will primarily focus on salary and benefit increases or anticipated increases. That's usually where we start, since that's over 70% of our costs. But there's a lot of other pieces, and I thought this might be helpful so you know what to anticipate and when. And if you have questions along the way, please feel free to reach out or let me know.
Any questions about the timeline? Don.
I think this is a question for Julie. When I was at the Ag celebration a week or so ago, I spoke with a person who I will not name, but who is strongly considered retiring. And I don't need to know tonight, but at some point, will we get a sense as a board or information board as to how many people are retiring? As I say, I'm not looking for names, but that always plays an impact on our budget. Certainly if somebody has been a 30-year employee.
Yes, Don, just today, Bonnie and I were having a conversation that we anticipate, and not just us, across the state of Vermont, it's sort of a high retirement year. So we are anticipating a large number of retirements. So as we get that information, and it's never complete because people can decide at the last minute they want to retire, but we can get some numbers, particularly when it comes to negotiations too. I think that's important information for the board and that committee.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we can move on to the election of a board delegate to the VSBA annual meeting.
So this year, the Vermont School Board Association conference is on the 4th and the 5th of November. And I'm going to just take a quick look. Your annual meeting is November 5th. Don, will you correct me if I say it, if I make a mistake there? The meeting, at this meeting, you will want to elect a delegate to represent the board. In the past, you've elected Mr. Collins, as he is also a member of the VSBA board itself, but you can elect someone else. And at that meeting, you will have resolutions that the board passes and the delegates will pass. And that's why we're looking at first for your board to discuss and select a delegate. And then the next section of your next agenda item is for you to look at those resolutions and discuss the board's support for them, so your delegate can have sort of an informed decision.
So I'd entertain a motion to nominate potentially Don for being our delegate to the VSBA, if he's willing. Peter is the
I'll nominate
first.
Don Collins.
Peter's the first for nominating Don. Terry's the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of nominating Don, raise your hand. Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you, Don, for doing that for us.
Chris, I don't think I voted.
I'm sorry, 8-0. Abstentions. And motion carries 8-0. 1. Don abstained. Okay, moving on to VSBA resolutions discussion.
So I put the video up in the drive so people could take a look at that. If you wanted, if you like, I can share the resolution documents, so maybe you could go through them and you could be looking at them while you do that. Does that make sense to you all? Okay, let's see if I can figure this out. Sorry, my computer's doing weird things. It's not helpful at all.
Julie,
Yes. Yes, Don?
whether we want to consider doing this or not, it's entirely up to you. Certainly we can scan them tonight. But I'm going back maybe 3 or 4 years ago, found it worked fairly well, that people would read them and then email me, you know, like resolution 3 or resolution 5. I have a concern, I have a suggestion. So people, regardless of what we do tonight, they should feel free in the next, say, 10 days to either inquire or make suggestions to me.
That sounds good. So we could at least just go through and share what they are.
I think that's great. I think that's great.
Because of course the board wants to do more, take more of a legislative active role. So there's 6 of them. Looks like the first one is shared school district financial software system. The second is equal and equitable opportunities in any school receiving public funds. I believe that has to do with independent schools. The third is ed finance. The fourth is independent school pre-K and after school funding. The fifth is equity and anti-racism. And the sixth is our appointments to unified boards. So the first is, let you look at that and see if there are any comments.
I have a question. What do we think? What does Laura think in terms of financial software? Is this going to be another introduction of something that doesn't work, or is it going to be something good?
This is actually in response to the Power School e-finance. I will call it a saga. That's probably being more positive than it was. I'm actually on the executive committee for Vsba that is fighting to get rid of it. So I'm very much in support of this letter saying that it is not necessary to all utilize one financial software, especially when it's not a good one, that we can utilize the Uniform Chart of Accounts without it, and that we should cease any further investments in e-finance. So I'm definitely in support of this. Thank you.
Terry, if I might weigh in, I would say almost every month when we get to other business or board members bring in things from their districts, we hear a horror story about implementation of this system. And so I think, I don't know if it was Burlington, but anyway, a number of people brought forth trying to just put the pressure on. I don't know if it amounts to anything. So yeah, this conversation is going on for 3 or 4 years. And I don't know if it's, I guess Laura says it's getting better. I think she's right. I hope she's right. But that's where that's coming from. It's been a real struggle.
Are we voting
I
on
think
these
Devin
tonight,
had a
or-
question. I think Devin had his hand up.
Oh,
at one
sorry,
point.
sorry.
No?
Oh, I was just going to ask Laura what her thoughts were. So Terry beat me to it.
Ready for the second one? This one's from Addison Northwest, Rutland Northeast, Otter Valley. And you can take a look at that.
I have a question on this one when the time is right. It's Toby.
Go ahead, Toby.
So I never liked the word equal. I like the word equitable, but I don't like the word equal. So that's one thought. Are independent schools in the VSBA?
Some I believe are, although I know some of them are, yes.
So that to me is kind of interesting, especially with the whole new issue with schools that have tuition their high school students, and what's happening on the national with lawsuits relating to that. So I don't know about this one. I guess I'm just thinking out loud. Yeah, when they say equal and equitable opportunities in admission programs and practices, well, we have local school boards. So I just, the concept of equal there is, equitable is a very good word, but equal, like, I find that a word a little bit problematic. I for what it's worth, that's just some feedback. I'm not really opposed to this. I'm not sure really what it's saying though, or what it's in reaction to be honest. I would think that we already have all of this or striving for it anyway.
Don, I don't know.
This is an ongoing concern. It's been out there for at least 50 years, but gotten more, I think, more of an issue with some of the new funding things that are being discussed, that private schools, and it's places like St. J Academy, Linden Institute, that they have a bullseye on their back because they receive public monies because they're a school that's independent approved independent school, so they can take students. But there's been a discussion for years: do they provide the appropriate special ed services? And if you don't provide them, then you don't get those students. So this is one more time to look at the independent schools, make sure it's a level playing field.
Yeah.
Terry.
So I have a question. So this is trying to get those private schools to provide the level playing field, so equity for students, and provide all the services that the other schools do, as opposed to, when I first looked at it, I thought it meant, oh wait, this is saying that we will support funding private schools like, Rice and et cetera, that will make sure that funds go out to private schools as well. But it sounds like it's the opposite, that the private schools that are already getting funding would have to use those public funds in a way that supports all students.
Yeah, you're also raising another issue, and that's a big issue. I don't know if there's a resolution on it or not, but that's a topic. One of the things I would like to say, the Sage Harbor Academy, Linden Institute, Thetford Academy, those schools pretty much do what the public schools do. But there's been a big rise in independent schools in Vermont in the last 20 years. And some of them just could not provide the services based on the number of students that they educate and the funds that they have available. And so even within the independent schools, there was quite a discrepancy on what they could provide for the money being given to them through public funds.
It's a tough one.
You ready for the next one?
Yep.
You're at number 3, education finance. Is really about the weighting study.
And we have someone in our area, Randy Brock, represents Senate Finance on this weighting study. I have talked to him briefly, and I'll let him say what his thoughts are, but it's a challenge because I think the committee wants to wander into other areas than was their particular charge.
Don, this is Toby. I think you can hear me. I think I'm off mute. I noticed none of the resolutions deal specifically with statewide teacher contract, which is probably way too debatable. So I don't know. I'm kind of hoping to see a resolution on that one of these years, but I have a feeling that I don't know. You'd have to have a lot of the smaller schools put that forward, I think, or it sort of ties into here, the education funding system, and but anyway, that's.
Toby, that one gets talked about, but I wouldn't say seriously because it would require support of the legislature, and I can tell you, having served there. The legislators, the 180 legislators, don't have the stomach to take and move that issue forward in the political arena, and knowing where the votes are. It gets discussed, but very, very little has ever happened with it other than discussing it. And a few legislators saying, I'll support it and I'll take and sponsor it and all that. And it's like, yeah, because nobody's running against you and therefore you don't have to worry about losing your seat. We do have a very organized.
Don, you're muted.
We do have organizations that have a lot of political clout in the state.
But again, you have an opportunity to create your own resolutions as a board, which you would need to submit by, I think it's in June that you submit them for the vote the next fall. So we're just coming in on the end of last year's process here. The 4th one is independent school pre-K and after school funding. And again, this is another equity issue around private programs that tend not to enroll or educate students who struggle. And the same with publicly funded, funds that go to after school programs, et cetera. Do you want me to go to the next one? The 5th one is equity and anti-racism, and is a commitment statement. give me the nod when you want me to move it.
Julie, while we're on this one, I believe that the Vermont principals, Vermont superintendents, VSBA, and maybe even the special education coordinators or business managers may be at the table, but I know 3 of them are. And there's been a commission, they received a grant to look into equity and a lot of these issues are in these resolutions. I believe that.
Community Foundation money.
Yeah. And I know VSA has been kind of a leader. The other groups have joined. Or at least that's what I believe is happening.
And the last one is appointments to unified boards.
This has become a little bit of a hot potato in that the role of school boards to appoint or the select boards and who has the power. We know in the past, it used to be the select boards, then the school boards had the power, but then there are some boards, I think they're called unified boards, multiple towns. If they get resolved, the legislators have already said they'll address this, but it's one more voice saying it needs to be involving school boards need to have a significant role in this.
So Chris, I'm going to stop sharing. And it sounds as if Dawn would take any comments via email.
Don, does that number 6? We're not one of those boards, right? We're not a unified union. Or Julie, we're not.
We are.
Oh, we are. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Peter.
This question, I guess, for Dawn is, I'm not well versed in all those that we just went over, all those resolutions. So certainly leaning on you. Are there any of them there that you feel strongly against, like that wouldn't be good, or just curious on your opinion?
No, I think, for 2 years I chaired that committee, and now I'm just a member of that committee. I think they're good. I think sometimes we've had 20 resolutions, and when we do that, it kind of becomes a lot of distraction. I think, to be honest with you, some of these are feel-good resolutions that some people feel very strongly to put forward. And we as a board, it goes through a committee, and then the committee takes it to our full board, and then they go out to for the vote coming up. I think it's a meaningful process. I personally like to see us take a field like this year, because the whole idea is that this is used in lobbying the legislature. And if you have too many things going on, then it seems like you jump on the wagon and everything comes around. So I think these are good, and there's nothing in there that's bad. But some of it's probably unrealistic, but at least it creates a dialogue. I think the only one that probably has direct bearing on most of us is the last one. It's on appointment for members when there's a vacancy.
Terry.
Thank you. That's the one I had a question about. Because that's saying that the school board in the past would say, okay, let's say I resign. Then the school board, I would think that they'd say, okay, who do we know from Swanton who we want to have on there? And you would get a recommendation and they would fill it. And then obviously, if there was a March, vote, then you would put someone in. But you're saying this way that they'd go to my select board? You'd go to the Swanton select board and say, who should we put on here? Huh. Why is that?
Terry, your problem is you're too young. Back when I started in education 50 years ago, when a school board member resigned and you had to have an interim until the next election, the select board always did it. If it was the town of Swanton, the town of Highgate, the select board would take, a notice would go out. Sometimes I'm not even sure a notice went out. There'd be a vacancy. Next thing you know, Chris Dodd shows up. He's been appointed. His brother-in-law is chair of the school board. The select board, and says, hey, my brother-in-law's. No, it wasn't quite that bad. I think the select board took it very seriously, but I had select board members tell me when I was a superintendent, we don't have a clue. We don't necessarily know all the nuances of your job. Who would you recommend a couple of people? When I was in the legislature, one of the ones that led the charge, I think it was during my time as chair, we got that so school boards appointed their own. School boards would have a vacancy and they would meet and they had a meeting and usually would advertise there's a vacancy and then they could appoint. But with the non-unified, somewhere along the way, I don't know if it was not addressed or confusion, and so this is for clarification. And I think it's a great discussion between school boards and select boards. So I think we're going to get where we should be. But if you were probably 20 or 30 years older, you would experience that.
Don, it does say though, the power still, according to that resolution, still lies with the school district. It just says the school district will consult with the select board. So, that's not defined. So it could be just notification of the school board of, like, the school board could say, we want this person, we're required, this due to this resolution, we're required to consult you. So we're putting this forward name and now we're considering that consultation has been done. Give us your feedback or don't. I mean, so that was my worry too, Terry, or my meaning of it is that it's just a consultation, not I think the power still lies with the school board.
I don't mean to interrupt, but Chris just texted me and said that he lost his internet.
Right.
He's trying to reconnect now.
So, yes, I mean, right now it's just with the unified union boards, there's a little confusion over that piece. So this resolution would really, should it pass, would result in the legislature taking it up and then making a clarifying bill that would help so that there's no confusion around it. Joanne, you had your hand up. Chris is back.
Yeah, so I'm just, and I don't want to keep going into this, it's okay, but the year that I was a write-in, I'm going to say our town, or there would have only been 8 board members if for some reason, or we have to have 9. So this is saying that we have to have 9. And if that particular year where no one, had, wanted to do this, the select board then would have tried to figure out what they could do to get the 9th person filled in.
Well, there's still some confusion around that with unified union boards. So that's asking for clarity, but you're exactly right. That scenario would have resulted in whether it's this board or whether it was the select board or the collaboration between the two determining a process for appointing a temporary board member. Yeah.
Well, I'm here because of a select board member. So I'm just, it's not a bad thing. I hope it's not a bad thing.
Well, I'd say that was a success.
Okay, sorry about that. I got my internet dropped me for a minute. Are we done the discussion over VSBA resolutions? Are we ready to move on? Or is there more questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the last item under new business, which is Chromebooks for school board members.
So Laura, you may want to jump in, but we have long wanted, and it's a very common practice for school board members to have some kind of device that the school district gives them to conduct school business on. I think that we have a lot of folks that have different devices, and it's a challenge for Robert to support all the separate devices. And we have plenty of Chromebooks available. So it would be an easy thing to give the school board Chromebooks to facilitate your joining meetings remotely, but also just to conduct board business, to easily access the drive where all the documents and whatever committee you're on, those committee documents, it would make it a lot easier, and you wouldn't be conflating, probably the wrong vocabulary word there, your work device, personal device, and school, because sometimes that can be an issue. So we have that.
Yeah, can I just ask a question about this? When I first saw that, I thought, oh, great. I've got mine, but I can see where some people don't use it every day in their jobs and stuff, so they wouldn't have something that would work really well. And then now though that I hear you say that, I'm thinking, oh, wait, it does make more sense because you wouldn't get the viruses. It'd be totally just dedicated to school board stuff is what I'm hearing you say. And I'm just asking, how heavy will that be? Because when I'm traveling, I'm going to be carrying my laptop plus that. That's all I'm thinking.
I'm happy to come with you and carry it for you.
That's good.
One thing I also like about doing the Chromebooks for the board members, when we do get a new board member, I think it'd be a lot easier to train a new board member because everybody be using the same platform. So being able to sit down with somebody and just show them the tabs and whatnot, because I know personally I'm not very computer savvy. I personally think they're boat anchors. That's my personal opinion. But so something like that I think would be a lot easier for new board members as well.
And they're not heavy, they're small, they're inexpensive, they're very easy to work with. And I think Robert would agree. I don't want to speak for him, but the management side would be really, make our jobs easier on our side, not only for new board members. And then if you have a problem too, we swap it out, it gets repaired or whatever, and we give you a new one.
I was going to add, he also can remotely fix issues, so you don't have to bring it back to Robert. He can actually say, oh, let me look at this, and then do little things. The average weight for a Chromebook is 2.4 or 2 pounds, 4 ounces.
There you go.
I can handle that.
Peter.
Another positive that I see with this is, as Julie was saying, I had been using my tablet. It didn't work well for these meetings. So I don't have a PC, so I end up using my work PC. And like with the Freedom of Information Act, I certainly would hate to have to give up my work PC for somebody to go through. So I think this would definitely be a benefit.
I totally agree. I didn't even think of that.
Anyone else want to weigh in on this?
All right, we can make it happen pretty darn easily.
Absolutely. Okay. Steve, you want to make a comment? I guess not. Okay, so that concludes new business. We're going to move on to old business, and we have a negotiations update.
At this point, it's a very straightforward, short one. We have both exchanged intent to negotiate between the school district and the association. We've not been notified of their team yet, but our negotiations committee, which is Chris and Terry and Joanne, will be meeting next Tuesday. Bonnie and I will be joining them and we'll be discussing input from the administrative team and potential topics for negotiation, and we'll move from there. Our first exchange of proposals is supposed to be by November 15th.
Joanne.
Is there anything that we need to read up ahead of time to prepare for it, Julie, or just show up and, you'll catch us up quickly.
We will have, we have for you already binders made with the current master agreement. Oh, listen, I'm a big fan. As Dawn would point out, I've been in education a long time. So I'm very good with binders, with tabs. As we move forward, we'll have proposals that you'll have in particular sections. There are other documents for research purposes for you. We'll go through all of that, but you can get them ahead of time. I think Jerry Patterson from Central Office is going to send an email to the committee saying that you can stop in and pick up that binder. So if you want to read up over the weekend, you're certainly welcome to do that.
Thank you.
Terry.
Could it be available electronically, or is this not electronic, this stuff?
I'm also going to create a team drive for the committee, and everything will be electronic, but sometimes people like to take notes, and the drive can get hard to follow. So sometimes having things, we like to accommodate all learning styles, Terry.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the update. I'm sure more to come on that. So now we can move on to other business. First up under other business is board goals committee update.
Well, I would like to start if that's okay, and then the rest of the group can jump in. We did not have our meeting last night because we just, the facilities committee met, and we know that that was a valid, totally okay reason for you guys to meet. We easily moved our meeting to next Wednesday. So we don't have a lot to catch up on, other than the fact that Julie put together that beautiful survey about, survey about what you all think we should be looking at in terms of priorities for policies. And so hopefully everyone's had a chance to take that, because we don't want it just to be board members. We want it to be, administrators and leaders and principals, et cetera, in here. So hopefully, I don't know, Julie, I haven't been able to find that, but you and I can talk and figure out how that's going. Do we have a lot of responses, do you know?
Last I looked, there were 8 or 9 respondents. So we're, I can resend it out if you like. Or you
Would that
did
help?
You did resend it out.
I did resend it out. So if you look for something from me, if you could, that would be really, really helpful, because we should be getting back something like 17, right? Okay.
Something like that.
Just, I could put a little guilt trip on everybody, but we need it before next Wednesday when we meet. Thank you. And what else would you all like to say in our group? I could say that in November, we're hoping to talk about that Kosha is going to come, and we're going to switch from policies over to the curriculum, and not curriculum, but outcomes, and how we're doing with that, academic outcomes, achievement, and maybe some other outcomes as well. And we will be bringing back some things to you. So if anyone ever wants to visit, like you all did before, which was really great, into our committees meetings, then we'll be bringing back things to you with recommendations, okay? Now's the chance. I'll quit talking for the rest of the committee.
Julie, I do have a question for you. On the I was looking at our policies online the other day, and we passed one when I first got on this March or April or May. It was within the first 3 months on, it wasn't a policy, but it was a administrative procedure on hiring.
Mm-hmm.
That should be up on the web, right? Or no?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to double check. If it's not there, that's an oversight. So
okay, that's fine. I brought it up here because we're talking policy. So yeah. I was looking for that because as I was doing the survey, I was reviewing that too, and I was like, I know we did it this spring. So
no, we did. You're right. And I had been working on administrative procedures with Christine. So right. We're gonna be doing some more administrative procedure work.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, I think that concludes the board goals. Next up is facility committee update. We did meet last night. We actually we will be coming to the board with a recommendation regarding Highgate's remaining bond proceeds and the course of action we feel is the right one. We did have some things we needed to clarify from last night's meeting, not to mention we wouldn't have had enough time to warn it for tonight's meeting. So we're going to do it on the November 2nd meeting. So I'm not going to waste a lot of time with that. We also did talk about some other options like a centralized pre-K, but we need to do a lot more stakeholder engagement and to find out kind of the temperature of what people feel about it. So in a very quick summary of a 2-hour meeting, that's what went on. Like I said, at the November 2nd meeting, there will be a discussion and it'll be on the agenda regarding the remaining proceeds or the remaining bond funds from the bond in Highgate and the course of action we feel that will be best for that. Don, Peter, you want to add anything or did I do good? Okay.
Even though my connection was kind of in and out, I was very pleased to hear from Laura today and taking what I could gather last night that we're moving forward with a plan for Highgate that we'll be acting on. I think that'll be a good discussion, but I thought it was a very positive outcome from that meeting, Chris.
I agree. Okay, next up, future agenda items. We currently still have on the docket updates for SRO, Crossroads After School Program negotiations. Do we want to add, look into adding anything else? Or of course, we're also coming into the budget, so we're going to have a lot of budget on the agendas from now on too.
Yeah, we'll have budget and we'll have the Highgate bond project as big topics next.
Chris?
Don.
I agree with you. I think we have enough on our plate, but I don't want to lose track. I know the goals committee is really working hard. I enjoyed the reminder from Terry and got that done, but you know, superintendent's evaluation, administrative evaluations, whatever you want to call it, is something we shouldn't lose track of.
Yes, we actually set that up last year and that begins, I believe, in December.
Right. Which is just around the corner.
Yeah, yes, it is. Okay, any other agenda items, future agenda items? Seeing none, our next board meeting will be Tuesday, November 2nd. It'll be held virtually with a public space again. We'll look into another public space. We were unable to get the Swanton complex this time. We will try for next time, but worst case, we can also do central office. So unless there's anything else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Terry's the first. Peter's the second. All those in favor of adjourning at 8:36, raise your hand. Motion carries 9-0. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.